Welcome to Chapter 3F in the Setup menu for VoiceLive Touch 2. Next up, we've got a couple of pages of Midi controls. So for those of you who aren't using Midi at all, you're probably going to ignore this. For the people who are using Midi, chances are you already kind of know what you're talking about, because Midi is one of those things you either sort of know or you don't know. But we'll go through all the settings anyway. So Midi channel. Midi channel means, what am I listening to? There are 16 Midi channels available. What phone line am I listening to? Or if you're sending from a device on channel 1 and you want this to receive it, that channel, this channel here, Midi channel 1, has to match, okay? So out of the 16 channels, you just want to choose the same one. Some people who have very complex Midi setups will be sending, one thing to one device on one channel and one thing to another device on another channel, and that would be where you'd make this determination. Same thing goes for the CC channel, which is control change messages. If you wanted them to come on a different channel from, say, your program changes and things, you could actually set that channel differently, and you could say, listen for program changes on channel 1 and listen for CC changes on channel 7, if you wanted to do it that way. But you're getting into, like I said, relatively complex stuff at that point. Now, split direction, above or below. What this means is, if you're playing notes mode harmony and you're using a keyboard and you're saying, take my left hand and just make these harmonies with the notes that I'm making with my left hand, you're going to say, I want to split, say, above a certain note, I want to do it with high up on the keyboard, or I want to split below a certain note, lower down on the keyboard. A lot of people will choose, say, C, or maybe the C below middle C, and then they'll move their hand over to that side there, and they'll start playing, just the harmony notes, and they'll say, everything above that note that I've set, ignore it. I'm going to just play melodies and stuff, and it's not going to mess with the harmony detection. But everything below that note that I've set, make that the note that I end up splitting at, and listen to those harmonies. And of course, next to it, I'm just going to jump across rather than up again, is the note. So C1, you can select C, C sharp, D, D, whatever. Any of the notes that are actually in the scale, you can select where is that note, and then am I splitting below it, or am I splitting above it on the keyboard, or relative to the keyboard. Filter. So we've got filter is set to none right now. That means I'm not going to ignore any messages. I'm going to listen to everything that's coming in. If I get a program change message, if I see it, doesn't matter, I'm going to respond to it. A CC message, I'm going to respond to it. You can go program change. So say you want to set the Midi channel as 1, you want to set the CC channel as 1, but you don't want any program change messages to happen. So you're changing, say, banks, or you're changing presets on another device or on your keyboard or something, and it's automatically firing out, preset changes, and you don't want your vocal preset to change. Make sure that you filter out program changes. Next is Sysex, so it gets no Sysex messages. If there's other devices that you have that are sending Sysex, you could filter Sysex. And then there's program change and Sysex. I don't want to listen to either of those things, and that's the end of that particular menu there, but you can filter however you like. Transpose is obviously Midi Transpose, so you can go up or down by octaves. We can go 4 octaves in each direction. So if your keyboard is outputting in a certain way and you want it to receive transpose notes instead because of the way that you're playing, it's a really good way to do it. You can do it either here on this box, or you can do it at the keyboard, the source. Let's go to the next Midi page, shall we? All right, our Sysex ID. Normally you want to leave this at 0. It's the way that we end up communicating with the voice support software. So if you change this off of 0 because you're using the Sysex for some other way and you've changed the Sysex ID, make sure that you're going to set this back to 0 when you want to communicate with voice support. Let's look at pitch bend range. That's essentially just the number of semitones that the pitch bend can do. So if you got 0, it's not going to move much at all. You got up to 12, then it's quite a large range of pitch bending. And that's just going to be something that you set. We default to 12, but it's going to be something that you set based on your preferences of how far you want a pitch bend to be received and moved within the unit when you're doing a pitch bend. Now, Midi control. There's a couple of settings here. There's merge, which is supposed to take either MIDI by a MIDI cable or by USB, listen to either and respond to either. It works most of the time, but every once in a while with a particular setup, you may have to say, it's not responding the way I like, I'm going to choose an individual input. And that's where you'd go from merge and you'd say, I want to select just the MIDI input, so just the actual hardware MIDI jack on the back, or I want to only respond to USB input. And so you got USB here, so if you were sending USB via your laptop or something like that, you might be better off to just set it to USB rather than merge if for some reason merge is giving you a hard time. That comes to the end of our Midi section there, and we'll move along.